Good morning and afternoon. And I don't know if we have anybody here who's in the evening today, but we uh, really enjoy welcoming people from all time zones. It's just good to be United Methodist and know that you are arm in arm with other people who also care. And one of the things that we care about, of course, is creation justice and God's good world, which is why we're here today. So, welcome to everyone. And it's good to see folks. Um, our topic today is about what does it look like to have a conference level green team? And some of you will have these established already and are here to hear some pearls of wisdom from our amazing presenters. And others are like, oh my gosh, how on earth did people make this happen? And so we hope that we will be able to sort of talk about it in the round there. And if you have questions or anything like that, this is going to be a more interactive cafe. We're going to, instead of having breakout rooms, we're just going to share conversation together. So again, welcome. And this is, in fact, the Movement Cafe, and we meet Wednesdays, every third Wednesday of the month with a different topic. And this is an effort of the United Methodist Creation Justice team. My name is Rashenda. I am in Oregon. So sometimes that can seem very far away, whereas I was just talking about how Tennessee seemed pretty far away to me. So this is a wonderful part of being together. And I bet you're from a place that I would love for you to introduce yourself. Drop your name in the chat. We like to think of the chat as interactive. So if you have questions as we go along, please drop things in the chat. And if there's someone who catches that, they will respond if they can. We got a lot of peer wisdom. So everybody in here is an expert because everybody's been working on this. So feel free to join in the conversation in the chat. So please introduce yourself, and to introduce the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Velasquez Everhart.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see so many people joining. I think this is going to be a particularly timely conversation with annual conference season just around the corner. In fact, some of it has started in some places. Baltimore, Washington, go in terms of their first one. I am Kathy Velasquez Everhart. I am a layperson in the Minnesota Annual Conference, Commission Global Ministries Earthkeeper, and one of many leaders who helped bring this creation justice movement into being. As many of you know, but some of you may not, we are relatively new in the long history of the United Methodist Church, but we've been around for about 5 years. Not so much a new effort to connect existing and emerging opportunities to do the work of creation justice within the institution that is the United Methodist Church. We have a really long history, a rich history that continues to evolve and grow around affirming this vocation of creation justice. And we are seeking new ways to do that as the urgency of what we're doing becomes clearer and clearer to us as we face climate change, biodiversity loss, environmental injustices. There's just more that this institution can do, more that United Methodists can do. And so we seek to learn how to do that together. And one of the very first places, we connect with a variety of the boards and agencies. We partner with Global Ministries, with Church and Society, Discipleship Ministries, United Women in Faith, Higher Education, and so much more. And we've developed our own work teams. And so there's a whole list of work teams that you can connect with, including worship and solar and communications and more. This particular effort around annual conferences has been one of the core of the movement, in that it's really been attempting to connect to people in every single annual conference and try to provide support for teams and for church congregations and for conferences to do the actions that really we can do in those spaces using those networks and those connections. And so I'm particularly excited to hear from folks who have been doing this work, both some who've been doing it for decades, some who have been doing it for years, some who are really brand new and trying to figure out how to get this started. That is, I think, where all of us are somewhere on that timeline. And then the last thing I'll add is just that there's some clear mandates that came from our general conference a year ago that, first of all, that apply to this conversation, that every annual conference should have a caretaker of God's creation coordinator. And so that's a new mandate that we think will really help support and honor this work. There's encouragement that congregations and annual conferences should have green teams. And then there's additional resources around land use, around energy audits and net zero work, and sustainability practices for annual conferences. There's just really a lot that came out of general conference last year. And so we're looking forward to how our annual conferences can support that work. And I'm going to turn it back to Rashinda to guide us through the conversation today.
Awesome, wonderful. And Kathy and I are your conference Movement Cafe hosts today. So if you need anything, private messaging Kathy is usually more effective than me. So just full disclosure there, but I'm here for you. And so if there's anything you need as we go, just send a chat. I also definitely want to underscore what Kathy said about the range of legislation passed at General Conference and the very many different kinds of things that each conference team could do and could focus on. There's the technical aspect, the social aspect. There's dealing with the things like racism and land use, and all those things are intricately part of the work we have. And so how your green team comes together and what it looks like and what its focuses are, that's going to have a lot to do with where you are and what bubbles up. So let's jump in. We have a few wonderful presenters today, and we're going to start with the Baltimore, Washington conference. And we have two folks, and I'm going to just introduce both of them, and then I'm going to let them decide sort of how they're going to divide up the time. So Mike Koob is the member and former chair of the Baltimore, Washington Conference Creation Care Team. He's a founding member of the Multi-Faith Alliance for Creation Stewards of Frederick County and a member of the Middletown United Methodist Church in Middletown, Middletown, Maryland. Sorry. He is also a commissioned UM Earthkeeper and part of the 2006 inaugural class of Earthkeepers. There's also Reverend Cherie Wharton, and big shout out because she received commissioning to be a deacon yesterday. I think it was yesterday. So Cherie is a dynamic leader and dedicated disciple of Jesus Christ with over 25 years of experience in church leadership, education, and community engagement. She's based in Potomac, Maryland, and is passionate about church renewal and growth with a proven track record in developing innovative programs, building diverse partnerships, and advancing environmental stewardship. She currently serves as the Director of Education and Community Engagement at Potomac United Methodist Church, where she designs and implements comprehensive educational initiatives and outreach programs. She's a consultant with the National Wildlife Federation, and Cherie has coached congregations in creating sustainable green spaces and led environmental projects recognized with local awards. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mike and Cherie.
Okay, well, let me jump in first. Baltimore, Washington was officially recognized about 8 years ago with a creation care team, and that was a result of a reorganization of the church and conference church and society team. And about eight different focuses were identified at that point, including creation care, gender equity, immigration rights, legislative action, racial justice, restorative justice, and wealth equity. But this was wonderful. 8 years ago, we had official standing in the conference. The chair of the group of creation care was recognized during the annual conference session and was, elected after the nomination process. But a lot of work went on before that, leading up, which was so wonderful. Fossil-free UMC was introduced as a conference resolution in 2014 and 2015, and that raised the visibility of the need at the conference level to do something. Whenever you have a resolution, it really raises the visibility of what you're trying to do. In our conference, we have to go through our conference several different layers to get recognition and endorsements. Um, so pre-conference briefings. So it's just not on the floor of annual conference, but leading up to annual conference, you get to talk about the urgency of climate action, and you find your allies. And conferences all around the country are in this position now because it's a defined position. The caretaker of God creation should exist in every conference now by general conference action. So, find your allies any which way you can, whether doing resolutions. I can also say that United Women in Faith had the climate justice study just before we were officially formed up. So that gave a lot of people in our conference knowledge about the urgency of this action. Earth Keepers started in 2016 before it was a conference recognized activity. So that we've had 25 Earth Keepers come out of Baltimore, Washington. So we really worked hard to promote that. If you have a vocation to work in creation care, advocate to get people to join into that. Of course, now we have an advanced lay servant course called Loving People and Planet, which uses the same book that the United Women in Faith, formerly the United Methodist Women. So that book is in the second edition, a very good resource that helped us in our conference to have people work on this. We established a Facebook group early on. That's a way to communicate with people. We used conference communication through the printed and weekly emails. So we get information out to everybody in our conference. We have a table at annual conference. Also, the conference owns a project management software where each one of the groups can use it to plan their activities, have a calendar post. So, it's likely that your conference also has something like that. Ours is called Basecamp, but there's many different versions. And I'm very proud to say that in August of 2020, we had a webinar on environmental justice, environmental racism, that a link of that will be dropped into the chat. And as a result of that, 2 people who participated in that panel discussion subsequently became Earth Keepers. So, we're very proud of all that. And let me ask Cherie to talk about more current things going on.
Thank you. Greetings all. As Mike has already indicated, we have had done extensive work in creation care as a team. The Baltimore-Washington Conference currently has launched a comprehensive Green Team initiative aimed at mobilizing all of our churches in the conference to engage in environmental stewardship. The creation team is excited to start this new initiative as an invitation for our laity to become heavily involved and helping us to care for God's creation. We're currently partnering with Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake, and we're offering a specialized green team training effectively to prepare new churches, new congregations interested in getting started. It's designed based on United Methodist traditions and our social principles. And we will give each church tools that are and the knowledge that's needed, as well as provide ongoing support to launch a vibrant green team within their church. But that's just the beginning, because we are also working with our partners like Interfaith Power and Light, Eco America, and the National Wildlife Federation to effectively bring resources and expert guidance on things, everything from solar energy to native gardens to tree planting, water management, and energy conservation, both for our congregations and individual member homes. We fully understand that each of our churches may have different needs and have different issues that they may be dealing with. And we want them to understand under the green umbrella, forming a green team will help to bring some resolutions to their problems and to their needs. This summer and fall, we're inviting everyone to look for our lineup of webinars and information sessions where we'll be connecting experts and other churches, basically to ask questions and be inspired by Green Team activity. We're also currently sharing stories from local green teams in our monthly e-connection blog. The first issue is due to be launched in June, and it will feature a local church in the conference that's actively doing green team work. And so if you're wondering how to get started in our conference, we're here to help. Our team is reaching out directly to churches ready to walk you through the process and connect you with the community resources. We understand that everything you need, we want to make available on our website. There is a Creation Care website for the BWC. And we are also want to be available resources that you can connect with.
I might add that it's wonderful to have leadership transition, that a new leader can bring in a new viewpoint and really enrich the group. Although I'm the former chair, I'm still very active in the group.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Yeah, so for those of you who are struggling to keep or get a green team recognized by your conference, what you have heard Cherie do there is cast this vision, and Mike talk about what sort of that working, right? Working, got to work it, keep at it, and you'll get here. So, you know, this did not, as Mike said, this is 8 years in the making, and where you start is the exact right perfect place of where you're starting right now. So be inspired that this is how it can actually grow, and how it can start to look in the conference. And it takes a bit of time to get there sometimes. If you hit the ground running and do all that within your first 6 months, everybody here will all have to confess to the sin of envy, and that's going to make it really hard on your colleagues. So don't do that. All right, so I want to turn it over next to Dan Jurenko, who is with us from Tennessee, Western Kentucky. And a little bit about Dan is just to introduce him very quickly. Dan is the coordinator of the Creation Care Ministries of the Tennessee Western Kentucky Conference of the United Methodist Church. He also serves as coordinator for Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light from 2018 to 2024. He's a founder of the National Earth Keepers Program, hosted through the United Methodist Global Ministries. He serves as the coordinator of the prison program at Vanderbilt Divinity School from 2007 to 2020, through which he taught courses composed of Vanderbilt students and residents at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. He has a recent chapter engaging the climate crisis through spiritual nonviolence in the book Liberating People, Planet, and Religion, published by Rowman and Littlefield. He has a PhD in resource development from Michigan State University and a Master of Divinity degree from Garrett Evangelical Theological School. And I will turn it over to you.
Well, hello, everybody. Again, I'm Dan Tranko, and Tennessee Western Kentucky. We have, I think, one of the older formal conference ministries in the United Methodist Church. Tennessee, we have a real asset here that the United Methodist Church is strong in Tennessee as it is throughout much of the Southeast. And of course, Nashville is a core city within United Methodism. We have a challenge. It's both a blessing and a challenge that Tennessee is very diverse. You often talk about the three grand divisions. We got Appalachia, we got Middle Tennessee, and the Memphis area is kind of part of the Delta. And also a challenge, the political divide. Tennessee in some rankings is the most conservative political state in the United States, which is a reminder that we are called to be not partisan, but faithful in our work. And so that's an important reminder. We were formed in 2012 through a core team. Some of that core team still active in the ministry. Ann Cover, who's our ministry chair, I believe is on this call. Reverend Paul Slentz and Joe Boyd, I think, were there from the very beginning. And so it was formed out of a core team. In 2012, the Nashville District Conference had a resolution introduced by our then superintendent, John Collette. And it read, therefore be it resolved that the 2012 Nashville District Conference authorizes the establishment of the Nashville District Creation Care Ministry Committee to work with clergy, staff, and laity to provide information and resources to help facilitate the formation of new creation care ministries in local churches, strengthen existing creation care ministries, encourage multi-church activities, and report on the progress made in supporting efforts to become better stewards of creation. So again, we started as a Nashville district. Nashville district is a very active district. And in 2017, they got rid of the Nashville district. We reorganized. We kind of have this new spoke model of districts coming out of Nashville and spoking out. And they're named after rivers. And we wondered what to do. We met with conference staff, and they suggested we become a conference ministry. And I believe there's a resolution at the 2017 annual conference, and we became a conference ministry. In 2023, the conferences merged. The Tennessee conference merged with the old Memphis conference. That was in conversation for a number of years. And again, we got recognized as a merged conference ministry. And we identified some of the creation care leaders in the Memphis conference, invited them into our team. We had a retreat before 2023, so we were getting ready for the merger, and we had a great retreat out at one of the camps and kind of planned how we were going to go about with our merged ministry. We have a ministry team. It's ranged from around 8 to 20 members over the years. We are under something called the Connectional Table, which is kind of a consortium of all the charitable and social ministries in the conference. One of the things that's been, I think, important in our development have been convenings and summits that we've done over the years. Our first one was in April 2013 at West End United Methodist Church, and Reverend Pat Watkins, who I believe is on this call, was a keynote speaker along with Jim Deming, who was then leading the UCC Creation Care. In 2014, we had another summit at West End. Dr. Jennifer Ayers from Candler spoke, and it would really kind of focus on food and faith. So this was a great way for people to kind of come into the ministry. We had workshops, we did strategy sessions, probably about 75 to 100 people from the Nashville district alone were at those early workshops. In 2016, we started working closer with Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light, and they had a convening at Franklin First United Methodist Church, Sacred Calling, and again in 2017 at West End, and Reverend Fletcher Harper from Green Faith was our keynote speaker. And so these were very important, kind of really drawing people in congregations and lay people and clergy into the ministry. In 2019, we hosted the National Creation Care Summit in Nashville, and that was instrumental in getting the creation justice movement going. We've also used convenings. We've had one in the Southwest area in Memphis, where Reverend Justin Pearson, who led the environmental justice struggle against the Byhalia pipeline, was the keynote speaker, along with Dr. Yvette Blair Lavalis, who talked about food insecurity and food justice. And in our Northwest section up in Northwest Kentucky, our convening was at the Green Hills Farm, which is an organic farm led by the district superintendent in the Purchase District, along with her husband, John Varden, who's a pastor in the local area. They have an organic farm, and we had a nice day on the farm. Pat Watkins came and led a Bible study, and so that was kind of our founding event in the Northwest area. And in the Purchase District, in September of this year, we're going to have a kind of a convening on congregations and creation care. And in Nashville this year, we're going to work with Tipple, Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light, in the fall of this year on also convening on congregations and community creation care. So that's been an important piece of our ministry. Another important piece of our ministry are our area ministries. Our districts don't necessarily work that well that way in the former Tennessee Conference because they're kind of spoked out and they don't really fit geographic areas. But we've got a great area ministry that's continued in the Purchase District in the rural areas of Northwest Kentucky. We meet after the clergy gathering every other month and plan things out. We've also got a great core team going in Memphis, but we're currently co-meeting with Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light in the Memphis area. And so, but we've got some very active folks in Memphis planning events in Memphis. We experimented in 2021 with some district Zooms and some of the other areas. It didn't take, it was right in the middle of COVID. But we had some great conversations, and so we continue to be in conversation about moving into perhaps some other areas into our conference. We're still very strong, of course. The other area ministry is in Nashville. Staffing of the ministry, I was brought on in 2014. I'm quarter time. As was mentioned in my introduction, I was teaching and coordinating the prison ministry at Vanderbilt Divinity School, but that wasn't full time, and so I had time on my hands and availability, and I was brought on quarter time, first as a contract staff, and now I'm a regular staff for the conference ministry. And I got to share a nice office here at the Denman building where I'm speaking out of today, and we got a lot of support. I was also for some years the coordinator of Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light. I'm continuing on with them as a consultant. I do a lot of travel. Last year I was on the road 100 days out of the year between these two positions. Another important piece, though, was Reverend Paul Slentz was appointed to creation care as his elder position. He wanted to do that. He had a great passion for that, and he did that between 2017 and 2020. He was not salaried, but he kept his benefits, and he kept his standing, of course, with the conference, and it was a recognized post. And that has really helped us. He was president of Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light for several years, and has really really helped strengthen the ministry, and he continues to be involved even though he's fully retired now. We're very much intertwined with Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light. We do a lot of activities together, although of course we have also a very strong identity of our own. And so we do, like I said, a lot of co-events. For instance, just this last Saturday, we did a co-event on, along with Southern Alliance for Clean Energy and Climate Nashville, on homes and energy saving here in Nashville. So we do a lot of kind of those collaboration co-events. Interestingly enough, we've been a real leader through Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light on the whole climate issue in Tennessee. In fact, I think for many years, we probably provided the most active folks, other than a few Sierra Club folks, in the whole climate movement here in Tennessee. Being a very conservative state, everybody tends to shy away from climate, including some of our environmental organizations. And so, we saw that as something that, again, being faithful is something that we really needed to lift up. A lot of that has been focused on the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is the nation's largest utility. And when I first started this work, I remember the CEO of Tennessee Tennessee Valley Authority standing up and said, well, this climate thing, well, it's something we may need to address someday, but the time is not yet. And this was around 2014. Now they've got a full commitment to decarbonize, a whole decarbonization plan. So I think we've had impact over the years, although in the current political climate, but there's some backsliding probably going on there. And so it's a real challenge. And there's a kind of a natural gas or fossil gas build out happening here in Tennessee. But again, we become, that's, I think, one of the things that has been really kind of core and interesting out of our faith commitment, that we've been impactful in that way. Our funding is entirely donor-based, directly to the ministry. We don't get any apportionment funds. This is through individual donors or congregational donors. We're encouraged by the conference to do that. We're not seen as competitive, but in a day of declining apportionments, that's actually well appreciated. And we also have a ministry partner grant from West End United Methodist Church, and we have an anonymous donor who gives us a fair amount of money, who, through kind of is connected to a family foundation. And so that's our funding. Our core offerings, we do a lot with adult education. We'll provide a lot of adult Sunday schools and such. We help out. There's a lot of congregational initiatives and green teams throughout the conference, and we provide consultation with those efforts. We have provided support around energy efficiency, solar, and land use. We do interfaith services and climate vigils, particularly through Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light. We had a really big one back at Belmont United Methodist Church around the whole Paris climate talks, and we continue to do that. Again, advocacy. Energy justice is a real important piece. We very much support the home energy uplift here and across the state, and particularly in Nashville, where TVA and local utilities do very substantial weatherization upgrades for low-income homes. TVA, Memphis is a real center for environmental justice struggles right now, particularly in South Memphis, which is one of the most polluted areas in the United States. The data centers, our good friend Elon Musk is building the largest data center in the world in Memphis as we speak. And they have going 23 gas turbines that are unpermitted, which is pretty and it's polluting the general area. So there's a real community mobilization around that, and that's something we support. And we do our regular area events. On May 3rd, we did our annual area recycle day, where we take in hard to take in items like electronics, paper shredding. We have Turnip Green that takes materials that, like sewing things, Thrift Smart that takes Goodwill, and we've had medicine from the police department. The Green Hill Farm event has now become an annual event up in and a lot of young folks. We really have encouraged young folks from the Wesley Foundations and us such to come. So the majority of the people there at the last one were under the age of 30. We've got an environmental justice film series going in Memphis, where we're partnering with Memphis Community Against Pollution. We've got a new effort where we're reaching out to Wesley Foundations as a focus this year. We have a very fine website that Ann has put together, and it's fairly prominent on the conference website. And we provide project funds of up to $500 for things like if a congregation wants to do LED lighting or such. And we've often provided recycling at annual conference and help do educational pieces at annual conference of the Lunch and Learn. So that's our ministry in a thumbnail, and that's our history and our ministry. So
that's awesome. So yeah, so that overview of one of the things I really hope you're hearing from as Dan is sort of walking us through what this process has looked like, is it started with the summit. It started in one place with one conversation, and more people attended than was expected. And from there, Dan had found that every time you move to a different location, you work there, you're building your organization. And from that comes all these options for ministries as people get excited about being part of a creation care team, and they want to bring their expertise, host at their farm, share their knowledge. And you end up building this sort of moving group of, I think, Dan, you said about 20 people at any given time, as different people bubble up to serve and different peoples do other things. And contrasting that with what Mike and Cherie talked about, which is from the get-go sort of networking at not, I hate the word higher lower here, high Jesus and low Jesus, but at the more a little bit more broadly, less regionally focused, less on the ground. But what happens is, even as they start there, they start moving toward the ground. And Cherie's experience with the National Wildlife Federation is a wonderful example of that, getting down to actually help people with the land under their feet and understanding that faith flows through that. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. There are questions that are technical. So one of the pieces of this is that technical piece of, wait a second, we passed legislation at general conference about the net zero, and we passed legislation about doing audits at the church level and identifying and removing stumbling blocks to making these changes. Well, our agencies are not yet acting. So what we do here partly is raise that over and over again. And you could be part of our net zero team, or we're wanting to do a cafe with trustees coming up as a way of helping people see and identify this. There's great work already towards this going on in the North Carolina conference. In the PNW, Eric Walker is going crazy with trying to get this technical stuff in Uriola in Upper New York. Robert Downs in West Ohio. Believe it or not, you're not alone, and those people are out there. So connect with United Methodist Creation Justice movement around that for more specifics, and please join us as we sort of help push that along so that the Council on Finance and Administration begins to really help us make some of these rules. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is talk a little bit about brass tacks. So my piece of it is we have in the PNW Pacific Northwest Conference the babyest green team. I think ours is the youngest in the conference. It was established in December. It is I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but we did it through legislation. So not through on the ground work, and not the legislation kicked off the Baltimore, Washington as well. And yet they had all these as well, pulling from all these organizations in their area. We kind of, we just said nothing's happening, so we're going to legislate this. And so I'm going to tell that story, and I'm going to share my screen to do that. All right, so initiating and I'm going to go through this quickly because I need to, but I am available for more questions. Reach out to me if you need anything. So I want to start, of course, with God, with Bible, with faith. And this is from Psalm 1. People in right relationship with God are like a tree replanted by streams of water, which bear fruit at just the right time and whose leaves don't fade. Right at the beginning of the book of Psalms, preparing us for all that is to come, we are told that being a godly person and the kingdom of God is like a tree planted by streams of water. So here we are, creation justice in a nutshell. And because of this, I thought, let's start with the image of tree houses. I love tree houses anyway, so you'll see pictures of those as we talk. So what we heard in the Pacific Northwest Conference and what I've heard in other places is things from conference leadership that are dismaying. Bishops, conference staff, we hear things like cabinet members, people don't care about that. I don't know what to do with that. And we don't have money for that. So there comes a point where there's a failure of dialogue, where emails go completely unanswered, where phone calls aren't returned. I'm just being honest here now. United Methodists are good folks, right? But we're still people, and we still struggle to understand what to do and what's next to do. So when dialogue has failed, when you're getting nowhere, it's probably time to resort to legislation. Now, legislation, of course, can be done in cooperation with a conference, but in this case, this was done anyway. So legislation isn't perfect, and our little greenhouse, treehouse there is working on it, but it makes a start, and legislation can help you when your conference leadership won't act. Legislation also helps you when they do want to work with you, and then you can work on legislation together. But that's not what happened in PNW, and it may not be what has to happen where you are. So there are 3 ways that legislation helps you. In your annual conference, here you are, you have written legislation and handed it over, and the conference body is going to talk about it at annual conference and vote one way or the other. So what it helps you do, there's no guarantees in this process, but it helps make the will of the body visible. So that comment from the cabinet, people don't care about that, is simply untrue and demonstrated by votes of between 85 and 95% when we in the Pacific Northwest and other Western jurisdiction conferences put forward legislation to do just this. Obviously, people care a lot. Almost everybody cares enough to want to pass the legislation. So, and this makes it visible to all the participants, lay people, clergy, youth, retirees, everybody there in the conference is voting for this. It brings the conversation to the conference floor. So cabinet members are busy. We know this. They're overloaded. Those unanswered emails aren't personal. They're just literally sliding down the day's emails, right? So conversation must be had about this topic, and bringing it to the conference floor means that it needs to be, quote unquote, debated on the conference floor. And don't think it'll work against you necessarily. In the PNW, most of the people that spoke up spoke passionately for the legislation. One talking about their dismay at listening to the grown-ups talk about how, well, some people think it wouldn't be a good idea. Well, that's their world that they're talking about. And it's really hard to sit and listen to people discount the need to attend to the world. It was just really affirming. And we also got our legislation tightened. People wanted more structure, more rules, more structure. And so we ended up passing our net zero legislation much more robustly than we had anticipated might pass at the conference. So it works. It works. It's not perfect, but it works. You've got something on the books now, just like at General Conference, we have these things on the books that we can now begin to talk about as a faithful expression of our faith. How we do it matters. So these are the steps I recommend, or at least I've seen work because I've been in the middle of it. So gather a team. So this is your first step. You're not alone. I promise you, you're not. So gather a team. You want 5 to 7 people on your original team, just to start talking about what would this look like here to have a conference level green team, or whatever you want to call it, conference creation justice team, whatever, however that goes. And then that's going to be your core team through this whole process of getting that passed. But you are also going to begin to expand to hear other people. So growing that community outwards, making sure that you're listening to stakeholders. Some people may not, like undocumented members of your conference, may be very interested but not able to speak out, but you can listen to them. You can listen to them and hear the environmental challenges they're facing, their ministry challenges they're facing, and bring that into your team. You also want respected people within the conference, influencers, so that the legislative team can't look at the list of people on your names and go, well, we don't know any of these people, so we don't have to take this seriously. Somebody on that list will make it hard for the legislative committee to throw out your legislation. So really find that person or two so you can have them on your initial legislation. And the last one is just truth telling, is you need at least one person on your team who can speak plainly to the powers without fear of retaliation. So this is a layperson who is confident in speaking boldly, or this is a retired clergy or clergy who cannot be retaliated against. Clergy are afraid because of retaliation. I'm really sorry to say that. We're people, we're working on it, but that's just true. Okay, now every conference has a vibe. What your team is going to look like, what's going to matter to your team, how you're going to grow your team. And, it may feel a little funky to you, but you know what? It's still a treehouse. It's still a treehouse. You're working on it. You're doing it. You're amazing. So that's a good thing. Just keep at it. And the vibe is like right now, there's kind of something in the works as well. I don't want to talk too much about it, but the conference vibe there is very grassroots, very much like building a network, getting church to church, local church to local church, to really find out whose heart is in this and build a network together so people don't feel alone and build capacity that way. For the United Methodist Pacific Northwest Conference, it was different, this like vibe of professionalism. And for the Pacific Northwest, I'll just read this to you. The team wanted to be super official, informed, primed for justice, and they settled on the name Commission for Environmental Justice. It has 12 members, 4 advisors, 2 caretaker coordinators, and it means business. And it's the baby of the conference care teams. So this is happening. So embrace that funkiness, that uniqueness of your particular setting. Discern how you're going to be in the middle of that, and ask yourself what matters here. Identify your strengths, right? This is normal stuff. Identify your stumbling blocks. Might be the bishop, might be the connectional ministries person, might not be. You might be wrong about that. They might actually rejoice at this. And what works where you are. Build in accountability for promised actions. This is true for your team members as well as for the people that you're going to task with your legislation, like the treasurer, for example. If you are going to be asking the treasurer to do something like we did in 2 different conferences, they may not know how to do that after the fact. This is new for them. So be prepared to be a support to the people in the conference who are going to be asked to do this work with you. And trust your discernment and trust the Spirit, right? This is United Methodism. We may not be covering the ground with hay and falling into it and collapsing with the Spirit anymore, although sometimes I wish we would do that more. But this is the Spirit showing up in our lives and in our work. So write that legislation. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. We're going to start somewhere. It's going to be perfect. Plant that tree. Plant it by the stream and let it bear fruit. It's a process. We're all moving on to perfection. If you fear pushback, though different conferences, again, have different things. if you fear pushback, that there's going to be a problem, write it in secret as your father is in secret. They don't have to know. This is the work of your team. We did not let that cat out of the bag. Even Jesus says, "Shut not the Messiah." So we were respectfully, faithfully quiet about what we were doing until we brought it to the legislative committee. So, and it passed with overwhelming numbers. And I'm going to give credit. It may not be a disaster. You do it that way. I'm going to give credit to our conference staff at PNW. They had like five staff members sign up for the Earthkeeper training that within a few months of that passing. Including the director of connectional ministries in Pacific Northwest. So this is absolutely marvelous. And it shows the intent. If we can find pathways, it makes a difference. And legislation can be a pathway, faithful, good heart. And celebrate each step, right? Glitter, hooray. Really celebrate. This is joyful stuff. We are people, children of God. We love God. We're going to be celebrating. So just to continue with that how is really important. Widen the circle and keep that open. You can build structures like name a caretaker, coordinator, a chair or leader, facilitator, whatever you want to. Again, your context is gonna say a lot here. But continue to build capacity, learning, partnerships. Those webinars are amazing that you hear about. Those in-person moments where you get to really talk to people. And perfect the effort with follow-up legislation as needed. One and done is probably not going to be a thing. You're going to continue to learn and continue to change. Be assured, these tree houses aren't just for human beings to play around in. These are homes in our earth that God has made for all creatures. And remember that God's church is about holding faith together, and that the tree by the stream is not alone, but in the midst of and fully part of the community of all creation. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And staff and clergy may need support as they work to understand what this work needs and entails. Do not feel like just because you don't have Rev in front of your name, that you cannot robustly ask for this work. In fact, you have more power than you think. Your power as a layperson is huge. Just live into it. Be assured God is with you. Follow through. Legislation once passed can languish, and leaders may ghost you and not return emails and delay. That's okay. Organize, build community, build partnerships, build in timelines and accountability. You got this. You totally got this. Legislate from a heart of faith. Be like a tree replanted by streams of water, which bears fruit at just the right time and whose leaves don't fade. Amen. How's that? Am I back? Okay, good. All right. So that, sorry, apologies, as I sort of, hopefully that wasn't too rambly. But the heart is there, right? That's where we start, beginning, ending, and wherever piece that you go, whatever your treehouse might end up looking like, that's okay. We're working this. It's amazing. It's going to be amazing. I want to, so we've talked about the newest, brand new creation care team, established ones that have kind of gone about the process a little differently. And I want to invite Marty, who will share the process he is in the middle of, like, oh my gosh, I really want to bring this together. And it hasn't happened yet, and I'm working it. And to introduce Marty Topeka Floyd is senior pastor at First United Methodist Church in Jamestown, North Dakota, and an elder in the Dakotas Annual Conference. He has an undergraduate degree in chemistry from the University of Redlands and a master's divinity degree from Pacific School of Religion. He has led several missions U studies on poverty, climate justice, the Gospel of Mark, and living in the kingdom of God for the Dakotas United Women in Faith. Over the past 10 years, he has traveled to Haiti and the Dominican Republic and Solar Oven Partners on short-term missions trips. So that is my introduction. And Marty, I don't see you. So I want to, oh, there you are. Wonderful.
I see.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richinda, and everybody. I'm sort of in awe of some of the efforts that the annual conferences have produced over the years. Since then, I have a picture of Nicaragua behind me, a short-term mission. That's something that this church has been very active in. And I just absolutely love that picture of the olla with a crack in it, and it's the shape of Nicaragua. And then the water is flowing out. The land of lakes and volcanoes is what Nicaragua is all about. So, as mentioned, I have worked with United Women of Faith, or United Methodist Women in those days. Back in 2016 and 2017, I led the Creation Care Climate Justice Study and had pretty good numbers of women showing up. Did it in South Dakota and North Dakota, 2 weekends in a row, and really hoped that I planted some seeds and they would start growing. And the next year, I'd check in with them and not much had happened. We had a wonderful weekend together, wonderful study. We used a book, I believe Pat Watkins wrote it, edited it, on climate justice. And it wasn't until after I came to Jamestown in 2020 that I really found out about the climate justice network online. And it was like, oh my goodness, what have I been missing out on? So I learned about the Earth Keeping program and Earth Keepers. And so I found a good reason to attend one that was only a few 100 miles away in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. So I did that last October, and they ask ahead of time that you come up with a project. A project. What am I going to do? And as I prayed about it, I realized, we've got one green team that got started in this conference, not at the church that I serve, but at another church. And I said, well, maybe I should find out what the rest of the conference is doing. So my project has been to survey the 100 or so churches in the Dakotas Conference as to what they are doing currently and what we can do to do more to establish green teams. So started out with a questionnaire and started calling churches. And it's posted online somewhere. They'll have, yeah, there it is, the chat. You can see that 7 questions. And it's a document that can be completely adapted to your annual conference. And so the questions are, what is your church currently doing in the area of creation care, lighting, heating, landscaping, recycling, programming, learning, worshiping, advocating? How organized are those efforts and how long have you been doing it? 3, what vision is there for the future, and is there an openness to establish a green team? 4, does your church engage in any foreign mission work? I found that people that are aware of the rest of the world care about the environment. You see how that's affecting other people. It's often been pointed out that so much of our missionary work in other countries, especially poor countries, can be totally undone by climate change. It just devastates our efforts. So if we care about mission, we really ought to care about climate justice and climate change. Next, how aware is your church about United Methodist policies and resources on climate justice? I've known about the work through the United Women of Faith, but I wasn't really that cognizant of what was happening with church and society, with global ministries. And so I was thrilled to find out about this organization and this effort of work. And then I asked whoever I interviewed, usually the pastor, who else should I talk to in your church about this? And finally, I followed up with, would you be willing to serve on a conference level creation care team, or green team as the case might be? And so I talked to 70 different churches, not quite 70 different people, because hey, we're in the Dakotas. We don't serve just one church at a time here. We're often serving 2 or 3. And I found about 8 people who were willing and interested to go along with this. And that was great. That's great. So some of the things that I discovered in this survey is that half the churches have already converted to LED. everybody likes to save money, and LED lights are a proven way to do that. That is the low-hanging fruit on that wonderful tree planted by the streams of justice. And so that's a good start. Half of the churches do some sort of recycling already. Again, the low-hanging fruit. And some even have banned styrofoam and plastics and thought about that and tried to do more with things. About a third of the churches actually have some sort of cross-cultural mission work, either foreign, they travel somewhere, or their church has a worshiping congregation or a connection right there in their neighborhood, so that exposes them to other cultures. There's only a few that are actively engaged in creation care and climate justice currently. I'm in the Dakotas. That's where the new Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, was the governor for 8 years or so. And he's the one that's pushing for oil and gas development. Now, I know we're not going to get rid of oil and gas, fossil free. I love that idea. It's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be some transitioning, but it's pretty popular in our state. Our state has a legacy fund that's funded by a certain amount of the tax revenue from those wells that are pumping away up there in Northwest and Western North Dakota to try to save money for the future when that oil runs out. We figure there's 300 billion barrels of recoverable oil, and I shudder to think what will happen if that all gets extracted and burned and turned into carbon dioxide and water products. But it's pretty hard to speak against it, even though we're the Saudi Arabia of wind. There's other things, just energy for all through United Methodist Women. So that's where we're at. I've been asked to be the interim caretaker of God's creation for our conference. I trained as an earth keeper. I am so grateful for this document, which I believe you've already put in the chat, and because it's very comprehensive. It gives us a lot of good information on how to go about this step by step. We're working with a new Peace with Justice coordinator, and there's not to my knowledge, a group like this group, a network of people. Maybe Church and Society can connect him up with that, but I'm very grateful for this group. So thank you so much. Thank you to Kathy Eberhardt, who has connections to our conference, and Tim Eberhardt, her brother, is coming and speaking in 2 weeks to our annual conference. Our bishop was the bishop who commissioned the Earth Keepers last November. And so we have a lot of good support there.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Marty. So yeah, you can hear that, like, Marty's doing what a lot of us are doing, right? Spinning the wheels, like, what will work here? How can I gather information? Where can I find the people who will stand beside me as we sort of explore what this means? One question, Marty, was, do you have the results of that survey? I think people are looking for courage there. Did a good number of people say that they cared about those things? If you can post that or scroll up your chat, and you'll find the person who asked that. That would be helpful.
It should be online in the Earth Keepers. I forget what all these. There's so many different websites, but it's out there, and it's available. I think it was in one of the recent newsletters too, a link to it. So
okay, awesome. That sounds great. Yeah. All right. And I'm gonna type one more. Oh, whoops. Kathy, can you put the main United Methodist Creation Justice Movement email address, web address again? So Marty showed a document that's under caretakers. Go to resources, caretakers. And it's very comprehensive. That's a nice little roadmap. And we have people here who worked on that document, people here who are the first caretakers, people here who are doing this work. So if you're, and they're here because they want to hear what other people are doing. So be encouraged. What you're doing is actually really important, even if you're just at the beginning. I want to move us into a time of question and answer. Usually, like I say, we do breakout rooms, but today we want to kind of have an opportunity to talk together. You can ask questions directly to the people in the room through the chat. And if you're a presenter or someone who is awesome, I know there's a lot of awesome people here, keep an eye on the chat. And if you have something you can share, that'd be really helpful. Mel, I see your hand up, and we're going to do a couple of ways. We're going to do it through calling of hands. So raise your hand if you have something. And also we've been looking at the chat, so we'll bring questions back from the chat as well. And Kathy is the guru of that process. So Mel, if folks who don't know, Mel is a caretaker in the Rio, Texas conference. Not Rio, Texas. I'm sorry. Horizons, Texas. Yeah, I'm a dork. Okay. Horizons, Texas, and has been doing this work for a long time and has been instrumental part of the movement and kind of helping to shape the conversation around what is a caretaker, how do we bring great conversation with church and society, which we're in the middle of this great conversation with them about this. So I'm going to turn it over to Mel. You want to ask your question or make your comment? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is that we have heard some wonderful presentations, and they're all different models. And one of the thing, if you are planning on starting a green team or a creation care ministry in your church or annual conference, understand that no one size fits all. And you have to identify what is going to resonate with the people in your church, in your annual conference, and then build your team around that. And as you've heard from Dan and from Mike, this takes time. You can't do it all at once. And so you're going to be implementing this over a number of years. In the North Texas Conference, which is one of the 3 legacy conferences that is now the Horizon Texas Conference, we unified last fall. But we passed in North Texas, we've had a green team since 2009. Now, with Horizon Texas, everything that took place in the 3 annual conferences previous has to be reintroduced. So we are now creating a creation care task force in Horizon Texas, which will take the place of that green team. All the legislation that we passed in the individual annual conferences has to be reintroduced. And so understand that I tell people my favorite verse of scripture is, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape." And that is something that if you're doing this work, you have to remain flexible because things are going to change and you're going to have to adapt. So just encourage you to move forward with what you're doing. And if you have any questions, I know that Grace Pugh Hubbard is on the call. I'm on the call. A number of us who are caretakers of God's creation coordinators. We're here to help you in whatever way we can.
Yeah, that tree has deep roots, right, and high branches, but it's also next to that stream that's gonna like wind around and do all sorts of crazy turns. So, be ready. It's awesome. Mel mentioned all the different ways that this can come together for a conference. And so I'm dropping a link to a form, one of those Google forms. But basically, we want to hear your story. We want to collect those stories and share those stories through the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement. So check that form link. And if you have a story to share, we have a newsletter, we do articles, we're in conversation with the agencies. We'd love to help promote your efforts and tell your stories.
Rashinda, one thing that Marty mentioned that may not be clear to people is that Global Ministries has a creation care network as well. And so that's another resource that's available.
Absolutely. The Earthkeeper program. In fact, if you look at the Movement Cafe videos on YouTube, you will find that we specifically address Earthkeepers in one of them, and there's lots of information there. Jonathan Brake, if he's on this call, I know he was earlier, send him a message because he will be so thrilled. There he is. Judith, I saw your hand, so I want to go to you, but first let's give Jonathan a second. When's the next Earthkeeper training? And does the Earthkeepers, isn't it cool that staff members, that people are joining up? So go ahead.
Yes, the next Earthkeepers train, well, the spring training just finished last weekend. So the next Earthkeepers training will be October 2 through 5 in the Seattle, Tacoma, Washington area. Our first time getting to the Pacific Northwest, West Coast. So you're invited to come from wherever, but we're targeting an area we haven't physically been to yet for a training, but that'll be October 2 through 5. And I will drop, I think you got the links already in there, so I won't have to drop that link in there for finding the Earthkeepers training, but we would love for you to come and bring an idea. Like Marty said, he had to come up with a project. So what idea would you like to do in your local church or community, conference, district, so forth? Bring your idea and we'll help you put together a project plan full of theology and Bible and coordinating with others and community development concepts and all of that, so that you can step away with something ready to go.
Awesome. Yeah. And did you hear where that's going to be? The Pacific Northwest. I told you, y'all, our commission, it means business. They are all business right now. It's pretty awesome. And they started with a retreat. Once everybody was named, they had a 3-day retreat together. And I think that was a really important thing. So that's another idea. Go ahead, Judy.
I first of all, I'm Judy Smith. I'm in the Baltimore, Washington conference, and I think all of these suggestions are really good. But I haven't heard a lot of specific ideas for your congregation. And for me, that is one of the most important things, is to see that my congregation, my church, is active. I'm an Earthkeeper, and I'm part of the conference creation care team. I do want to say that for specific ideas, Creation Justice, your website is wonderful because there are 10 tips you can get every month. There are films you can show in your church. Some things that there are ideas for, Earth Day. In our church, we missed Earth Day because people weren't available. They were traveling, but we've got Earth Month. So we have May this month going through June 1st as Earth Month. We put up a tree in our coffee room with specific commitments that children and adults can select for what they're going to do for Earth Month. That was a good idea. And also we have a skit that the kids are going to put on in worship on June 1st about creation and what we can do for creation. So I think specific ideas for your churches are really helpful.
Amen. So the material work, right? There's the organizing work, which is, people, social relationships. And then there's like the material work you actually do, the papers and the pens and the the checklists and the signups and the skits and the worship planning. So I think, Kathy, the tips, you can get tips to your inbox. And that's what Judy was mentioning from Chris Zinkowitz. That was her Earthkeeper project. And I think that she's got like 1,500 people on that list now. So this is the wonderful way that these things can happen. They're organic. And we have this tension between, the grassroots work, that local church work, and the conference work. And we're supposed to be and often helping each other, right? Even if it can feel a little frustrating at times, we're working together. Church is a together process. And Cherie, I see your hand. I'm going to turn it over to you.
I was just going to add, Reshinda, I believe Dan lifted it up, but I think it's important to mention that also it's not just about projects churches can engage in, but bringing solutions to already existing problems is also essential. We just recently had churches that experienced flooding, getting back to the source of that flooding and helping the church free up resources that they can use towards missions. When our churches change out their incandescent lighting bulbs to LED bulbs, that saves and reduces their energy costs. And that money, and in turn, can be used for missions. So we want to encourage churches that this is also a way to effectively get involved in the green movement, but also be able to recycle some of their resources back into the church, channeling them for missions and other projects.
Amen. Yes, because the emergencies, right? They take energy away, they take resources, and as disciples of Jesus Christ, our efforts encompass those things, but shouldn't be quite sort of obliterated, if you will, taken down by those things. So so thank you, Cherie. That's amazing. And this is something you can ask your conference to attend to, right? And you can offer yourself as someone willing to look around and see what is possible. Kathy, I want to pull a couple of, so Mel, I see your hand. That's awesome. I just want to pause here real quick to include any chat questions. Kathy, is there a question from the chat that we want to sort of bring forward that you've noticed? And you're,
yeah, I was trying to unmute. So I've been trying to capture them, and you've been responding to a variety of them as we go. And so I don't know that there's maybe what we can do is go back to a couple of the presenters to see if there was anything that they've heard that they want to bring back to the conversation. Maybe start there while I double check to see on the questions.
okay, good, because Cherie jumped in there. That's perfect. So just one second, Mel. I want to just check with Mike and Dan and Marty. Is there something you've seen go by on the chat that you think really kind of? So Mike, you unmuted. So go.
Well, there are a number of conference creation care team chairs on this chat, and Mel has spoken, and he speaks from a good experience, but also Virginia conference is represented by Karen and Pat, Western North Carolina by Jonathan and Kim, Pat there too. Northeast by Grace, Susquehanna by Mark. So let's remember those. And the thing I want to elaborate on is when you're making your connections, there are natural allies in our conference. I've already mentioned, and many people have mentioned United Women in Faith, but our camping and retreats have been a great partner in our experience. Also, Methodist Federation for Social Action, the chapter in our conference, and the national have really been out front on our issue here. So, connect with them. It's really strong in our conference in Virginia. There's a group of scholars. The group's called Wesley Nexus, and they're all PhD folks, and they have been just a wonderful, wonderful ally also to speak to what's going on. It's also, if you're a lay person, it's helpful to try and if you've never been a lay member to annual conference, try and get in there, and that will expand your view of your conference and help you understand in a better sense. Also, take advantage of your close friends or your spouse. In my case, I was really lucky. My wife is a CLM, a certified lay minister. She was a former chair of Church and Society for our conference, and she was a general conference delegate in 2016. So you can, those personal connections that you make through that way really, really help.
Okay, this is the moment, or I hate to be the one in charge of calling on people because my heart to Mel, but let's get the presenters there quickly. Okay, I see you affirm that too. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the camping ministries have also been important in ours. Yeah, thanks for lifting that up. The other piece I just kind of want to reiterate is it was part of my presentation of our history, but if you're starting a new group, and we're also kind of circling back to these in our purchase district and in Nashville, having congregation and creation care convenings, they're a good way to get organized because it gives you a project that you can work with as a team. You can do workshops about what congregations can do. You can do some strategies together. So again, if you're floating a new initiative or you're trying to revitalize an initiative in a conference, I would highly suggest that. It just seems to be a really effective tool to kind of to help catalyze your ministry.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, I just want to say that the question about what our local church is doing, that really is so important because that's where the people are. They don't live on the conference level, they live in their communities. And I know when I went to Earthkeeper training, there was some marvelous projects that people were doing with community gardens, with mitigating runoff from their church parking lots, publishing newsletters, making things, there's so many things at different levels. And this group, UMC Creation Justice, has made a huge difference in opening my eyes to all the possibilities. So thank you so much.
Oh, Marty, you're awesome. The talent on this call is freaking me out. It's amazing. God is so amazing. And the days I dreamed of finding 2 or 3 people who were as passionate as I was, it's just marvelous to have such an amazing group. So one thing I do want to say is that we brought up that little bit of the annual conference. Being a layperson, a delegate to annual conference, you can still go. But one of the team, little nascent, hopeful team buds that I'm working with right now, nobody on that team has the voice. They're not allowed to speak in annual conference session. And when they proposed their legislation, they were then shut out of the conversation as the body, as the committee discussed it without them. So don't let that happen to you. You can ask for a suspension of the rules where you can speak. You are there to speak to that. And you can have somebody in there that is a delegate or clergy who will ask you to speak. So there's some ways around this. Use them. So we're going to our time is so short, but we got 3 more people and I want to hear from them. So Mel, and then Grace, and then Pat.
Okay, first of all, I think any of us who are engaged in this work are available to consult with anybody on a one-on-one basis if you need that. And feel free to reach out. And most of us are on the jurisdictional page. Is that correct, Kathy? With emails and whatnot? Yeah, on the website. The other thing was that there was a question from Ellen in the chat regarding funding to support this work and support the people. And this is something that we are trying to work on. Many of our annual conferences are in budgetary constraints right now and are dealing with shortfalls. But this is one of the things that we are looking at is a variety of possibilities on how we can generate funding for this. And so look for that information moving forward.
The funding is a whole thing. We're going to do a cafe on that, I promise. And it's about priorities, about being the thorn, being the unjust judge. Remember the widow who keeps speaking up and speaking up and speaking up? That's us. So yeah. Okay, go ahead, Grace.
Thanks, Rashinda. I just wanted to throw in a quick shout out tomorrow at 2 Eastern. What is that? 1 noon 11 across the country is our Green Teams Conversation Zoom. This is a monthly Zoom that happens. We got about 35 people on the mailing list who've signed on for that through the newsletter. But if you want to, our topic's going to be how to promote green teams at your annual conferences this season. So if you want to jump in, it's just going to be a big old share fest. I've got my email in the chat. I don't want to put a Zoom link. So email me and I'll send you the Zoom link. Thanks so much.
You're awesome, Grace. We are almost at time. We're going to have a prayer at the end, but we are making room for Pat and then Mark. Mark will be our last questioner talker today. So go ahead, Pat.
So just for me, just a quick shout out to the importance of what I think in terms of making a team happen and engaging the greater congregation is the importance of biblical theology. And so I would encourage all of you to do some studying of the biblical theology of creation care, not just for yourselves, but particularly in terms of engaging people that may not already be in the choir, either in your team or in your local congregation.
Thank you, Pat. And there is a lot of resources for this. The effort has been going. Dan Jarenko's just got a chapter in a book. I hope we can put the title in there, Dan, and where we can get it. And because my brain is a million different places and I'm not going to be articulate about that at the moment. And I want to turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Rashenda. One of the ways to get yourself onto the floor of conference is maybe think about doing it from the inside out. Figure out a way to get yourself or somebody from your caretakers of God's creation team onto the sessions committee. And so then annual conference is actually being planned with, say, United Women in Faith's 13 steps to sustainability as part of their considerations. Thanks.
A man on the inside. So this is the importance of that. Remember how that grow the network thing? So this is everybody means well, but there's just a lot going on. So sometimes that like, oh, oops, I'm right here, I can do that, is really helpful and can help you build those networks and get stuff done. It is time. Unfortunately, gosh, I could have this conversation for another hour, but we are part of organizing is ending on time. And I want to just lift up all the presenters here, all the creation care leaders, all the earth keepers, all the people who are seeking connection and feel that heart pull towards this work. We are so glad you're here. And oh my gosh, having this community means a lot to me. So I want to turn it over for our closing prayer to Mike Koob.
Okay, thank you, Rashenda, and everybody else on the call. I want to bring to you today the Sojourner's verse and voice prayer, a short prayer in 3 sections from Psalm 104. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. And from the Brothers Karamazov, love all of God's creation, both the whole of it and every grain of sand. Love every leaf, every ray of God's light. And the prayer, open our hearts to see your wisdom in every creature and every grain of sand, that we may love all of your creation as a reflection of your boundless light and love. Amen.
Amen. All right, that's us signing off. You have all your contact information that you need. You celebrate glitter, who's got the glitter? Let's throw some around. So grateful to all of you. Thank you especially to our presenters for being here and sharing their wisdom, and for all of you. And I will see you in a month, next third Wednesday. See you there.